Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jay. And I need to open today with a confession.
Oh no, what did you do?
Last night, I spent 3 hours memorizing irregular verbs. I wrote them all down in a notebook with color-coded highlighters.
Jay.
I know, but it felt productive. Red for past tense, blue for past participle, yellow for the ones that are the same in all 3 forms.
And how much do you remember this morning?
Maybe 4 of them.
Okay, so that is exactly why we're doing this episode today. Because what you did last night? Classic language learning mistake. And today, we're going full science mode. We're going to talk about 5 different theories from 5 of the most respected linguists in the world. What they discovered, why it matters, and most importantly, what you can actually do with it tomorrow.
5 theories? That sounds like a lot.
It's gonna go fast, I promise. Because once you understand the big picture, everything connects. And by the end of this episode, I think you're going to look back at the last few years of studying and go, oh, that's why it wasn't working.
Okay, I'm equal parts excited and mildly offended. Let's go.
All right, theory number 1, Stephen Krashen. American linguist, professor at USC, and probably the most controversial and influential voice in language education for the last 40 years.
What makes him controversial?
Because he basically looked at the entire language teaching industry, the textbooks, the grammar drills, the vocabulary tests, and said, most of this is a waste of time.
Okay, I already like him.
His theory is called comprehensible input, and the core idea is actually really simple. He says there are 2 ways language gets into your brain. One is learning, conscious, deliberate study, rules, grammar, memorization. The other is acquisition, unconscious absorption. And his big claim is, only acquired language becomes truly fluent. Learned language? It helps a little, like a backup spell checker in your brain, but it can never make you actually fluent.
Wait, so all those grammar exercises I did,
Helped you pass tests. Probably didn't help you speak.
that is both validating and devastating at the same time.
Yeah, welcome to linguistics. So the question is, how does acquisition happen? And Krashen's answer is through comprehensible input. Meaning, you need to be exposed to language that you mostly understand, but that's just a tiny bit beyond your current level. He wrote it as a formula, I plus 1. I is your current level. Plus 1 is just 1 step ahead.
Why just 1 step ahead? Why not jump 5 steps?
Because if you can't understand anything, your brain just shuts off. Think about it. Have you ever tried to watch a movie in a language you know nothing about?
Oh yeah. I once tried to watch a French film without subtitles to immerse myself. I understood nothing. I just vibed with the cinematography.
Exactly. That's not input. That's just ambiance. For acquisition to happen, you need to understand the meaning of what's being communicated. The language gets in through meaning, not through memorizing its parts.
Okay, so what does comprehensible input actually look like in practice?
It can be anything, as long as it's just slightly above your level. If you're a beginner, it's a children's show, where the vocabulary is simple, but the content holds your attention. If you're intermediate, it's a podcast like this one. Maybe you catch 80% of it. You figure out the other 20% from context. If you're advanced, it's native-level content. Movies, novels, news.
Huh. So technically watching Netflix with subtitles.
Is one of the most legitimate language learning activities you can do. Yes.
I've been studying this whole time and didn't even know it.
Well, with the right content, yeah. But here's the part most people miss. Krashen's other big idea, the affective filter. Affective meaning emotional.
What's that?
So he says, even if the input is comprehensible, if you're anxious, stressed, embarrassed, or scared, your brain literally blocks the language from getting in, like an emotional firewall.
Oh wow. That explains so much about my English classes in school.
Right? Teacher calls on you, everyone's watching. You're terrified of being wrong. Even if you understood the lesson perfectly, nothing sticks. Because the filter is up.
So the best environment to learn a language is a low-stress one?
Exactly. Which is why people often make huge breakthroughs when they travel. It's not magic, it's that they're engaged. They need to understand, and the stakes feel lower because nobody's grading them.
Okay, so for someone listening right now, what's the actual takeaway from Crashin'?
3 things. First, consume content you enjoy. Stop forcing yourself through textbooks that bore you. Your brain learns better when it cares about the meaning. Second, aim for that I+1 sweet spot. Not too easy, not overwhelming. If you're understanding about 70 to 80%, you're in the zone. Third, protect your emotional state. Find low-pressure ways to be exposed to the language. Podcasts on walks, shows before bed, books you actually want to read.
Can I ask about the grandmother you mentioned before?
Yes! So this is one of my favorite examples. There are documented cases, multiple of them, of elderly people. We're talking 70s, 80s, even one woman who was 83, who learned conversational fluency in a new language simply through consistent exposure. No grammar classes, no drilling, just, in one case, watching television in that language every single day for 2 years.
Wait, an 83-year-old woman learned a new language from watching TV?
Yes, and this is a beautiful proof of Crashin's theory because it destroys one of the biggest myths in language learning, which is that adults can't acquire language the way children do. Crashin says that's nonsense. Adults can acquire. The mechanism is the same. What changes is that adults have more anxiety, more self-consciousness, more fear of looking stupid. The grandmother didn't have that. She just watched her shows. No ego involved, no test to pass, just genuine interest in understanding the stories.
That's actually kind of beautiful.
It really is. And it proves that if you can get out of your own way, manage that affective filter, age is not the barrier we think it is. Okay, theory number 2. Paul Nation, New Zealand linguist and the world's leading expert on vocabulary acquisition.
Vocabulary. Okay, I feel like this one I've at least tried to do right. I have apps, I have word lists.
Let me guess. You download the app, you're super motivated for 3 days, then you open it a week later and realize you forgot everything and the streak is gone.
The streak is always gone.
So, Nation's work explains exactly why that happens and how to fix it. His first big finding: to understand about 95% of a normal English text, a news article, a novel, a conversation, you need to know around 8,000 to 9,000 word families.
Word families?
A word family is the base word plus all its forms: produce, production, productive, productively. That's one family. So 8,000 to 9,000 of those.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. But here's the good news. Nation also found that the most common 2,000 word families cover roughly 80% of everything you'll ever read or hear in everyday English. So if you focus on those 2,000 first, you already understand most of what's happening around you.
Okay, so prioritization is key.
Huge. And this is where most language learners go wrong. They try to learn random words. Words from a song they heard, a random app, their teacher's list, with no regard for frequency. Nation says, be strategic. Learn the most common words first, then work your way outward.
Makes sense. But why do I keep forgetting words, even when I do study them?
Because of when you're reviewing them. This is Nation's second big principle, spaced repetition. And this is backed by decades of memory science. Here's the basic idea. Your brain doesn't store things permanently after one exposure. It stores things based on how many times you've successfully recalled them, and when.
What do you mean, when?
So imagine you learn a new word today. Let's say meticulous. If you review it tomorrow, you'll probably remember it. But if you review it again tomorrow, and then again the next day, and then every day for a week, you're not actually training your brain. You're just confirming what you already know in short-term memory. The word never moves to long-term storage.
Okay, so what's the right timing?
You review it right before you're about to forget it. So maybe day 1, then day 3, then day 7, then day 14, then day 30. Each time you successfully remember it, the interval gets longer. Your brain goes, oh, we keep needing this one. Better keep it. That's spaced repetition.
And that's what apps like Anki do?
Exactly. Anki is basically a spaced repetition engine. It tracks when you're likely to forget each card and shows it to you at the perfect moment. The problem is, most people use it wrong. They add too many cards too fast, they get overwhelmed, and they quit.
Guilty.
Nation's advice: add no more than 10 to 15 new words per day. Focus on the high-frequency ones. And, this is important, don't just put the word and its translation on a card. Put it in a sentence, a real sentence from something you've actually read or heard. Because words don't live in isolation. They live in context.
Okay, so what are the 4 things Nation says you need to balance?
Right. Nation has this framework called the 4 strands. He says a good language learning diet has 4 equal parts. First, meaning-focused input. Reading and listening to things where you're focused on understanding the content, not studying the language. Second, meaning-focused output. Speaking and writing where you're trying to communicate something real. Third, language-focused learning. This is where deliberate study goes: grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation work. And fourth, fluency development. Practicing with material that's actually below your level, so you build speed and confidence.
Wait, practicing with stuff below your level?
Yes, and this is something almost nobody does. If everything you consume is challenging, you never build fluency. You need easy material too, stuff you understand 98% of, so your brain can practice retrieving and using language automatically, without effort.
Like rewatching a show I've already seen.
Perfect example. You already know the plot, so your brain isn't working hard on comprehension. It can just absorb the language patterns. That's fluency training.
Okay, Nation's takeaways for real life?
1. Focus on the most common 2,000 words first. There are free lists online. Look up the New General Service list. 2. Use spaced repetition, specifically Anki, with sentences, not just words. 10 to 15 cards a day, maximum. 3. Balance your 4 strands. Don't just study, also consume for pleasure, produce output, and practice with easy material. Okay, theory number 3. And this one is kind of a friendly argument with Krashen.
Oh, drama and linguistics.
The most polite drama you've ever seen. So, Meryl Swain is a Canadian linguist, and she had this observation after working with French immersion students in Canada. These were English-speaking kids who spent years in French-only classrooms. Lots of input. All day, every day, French. And yet, after years, many of them still couldn't produce fluent, accurate French.
Wait, so Krashen's method didn't fully work?
That's what Swain was pointing out. She said, input is necessary, but it's not sufficient. You also need to produce language. You need output, speaking and writing. And her theory, the output hypothesis, explains why.
What's her argument?
She says when you're reading or listening, your brain is in understanding mode. And here's the tricky thing. You can understand something without fully processing every detail of how it's constructed. Your brain fills in gaps, uses context, makes assumptions. You think you understand, and you do, well enough to follow the meaning. But you haven't truly internalized the structure.
Oh, so I can watch a show in English and follow everything, but that doesn't mean I could say those same things?
Exactly. And this is Swain's key insight. She calls it noticing the gap. The moment you try to speak or write and you realize, I don't know how to say this, that moment of noticing is incredibly powerful for learning, because suddenly your brain has a specific target. It goes searching. You pay attention in a way you never would have if you were just passively consuming.
That's happened to me so many times. I'll be trying to explain something and I just hit a wall. Like the words aren't there.
And that feeling, that frustration, that's actually your brain opening a learning window. If right after that moment you find out how to say it, you hear it, you read it, you look it up, it sticks. Way more than if you just seen it randomly in a text.
So Krashen and Swain aren't really contradicting each other.
Not really. They're complementary. Krashen says you need input to acquire language. Swain says you also need output to solidify it and notice gaps. Both are right. The mistake is doing only one.
And most people do only...
Study, which is neither input nor output in the real sense. They're doing the third thing, language-focused learning, without the actual language experience.
Okay, so what does good output practice look like?
Swain identified 3 functions of output. First, noticing function. You discover what you don't know when you try to speak. Second, hypothesis testing function. You try saying something a certain way, you get a reaction, you learn whether it worked. Third, metalinguistic function. Sometimes talking about language helps you understand it better. Discussing grammar, reflecting on what you said.
So for someone who's shy and hates speaking English in front of people,
Start private. Literally talk to yourself. Narrate your day in English. I'm making coffee. The water is boiling. I forgot to buy milk again. Sounds silly, I know, but you are doing all 3 of Swain's functions, alone, with 0 social pressure.
that I could actually do.
Also, write. A diary, a journal, even just texting a friend in English. Writing is output too, and it gives you more time to think. You notice your gaps without the panic of a real-time conversation.
And the recorded voice thing you mentioned before?
Yes, record yourself talking for 2 minutes on any topic, then listen back. I promise you will hear things you want to fix. And that desire to fix them? That's acquisition fuel. You're noticing your own gaps in real time.
Okay, Swain's practical takeaways?
1. Talk to yourself. Narrate, describe, explain things out loud in English every day. 2. Keep a writing journal, even just 3 sentences a day. 3. Record yourself and listen back, weekly if you can. 4. Seek out actual conversations and be okay with the discomfort of not knowing a word. That discomfort is the learning. Okay, theory number 4. Jim Cummins, Canadian researcher, originally from Ireland. And this one is, I think, the most psychologically important for adult learners. Because it explains something that causes a lot of confusion and even shame.
Okay, now I'm really paying attention.
So Cummins studied immigrant children in Canadian schools, and he noticed something strange. A kid would arrive from, say, Vietnam. After 2 years, they're chatting with their classmates, joking around, navigating daily school life. In English. Teachers would think, great, this kid is fluent. And then they'd look at the academic work and it was still way behind. Reading comprehension, essay writing, science vocabulary. Struggling badly.
So the social English was fine, but the academic English wasn't?
Exactly. And Cummins said, those are actually 2 completely different things. He gave them names. BICS, Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. That's the social, conversational layer. What did you do this weekend? Pass me the ketchup. Have you seen that show? BICS develops in roughly 2 years of real exposure.
2 years, okay.
Then there's CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. That's the ability to use language for complex thinking, analysis, argumentation, abstraction, technical vocabulary, academic writing, expressing nuanced ideas. And Cummins found that CALP takes, on average, 5 to 7 years to develop, even in children, even with full immersion.
5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years.
I've been beating myself up for not being fluent after 3 years of studying.
And that's the point. So many adult learners, and this is a massive problem. They reach BICS level. They can have conversations. They can watch YouTube videos. They can travel and get by. And they think, why am I still struggling? Why does reading an article feel hard? Why can't I express complex ideas?
Because they haven't reached CALP yet. And they don't even know CALP exists.
Exactly. They think something is wrong with them, or that they're not smart enough, or that they've hit some ceiling. But there's no ceiling. They're just in the middle of a normal, expected 5 to 7 year journey.
That's genuinely comforting to hear.
It should be. And here's another thing Cummins found. And this one is controversial in some teaching circles. He found that your first language is not the enemy of your second language. In fact, a strong foundation in your native language actually accelerates CALP development in a second language.
How so?
Because academic thinking skills transfer across languages. If you understand how to construct an argument in Vietnamese, your brain already has that skill. You don't need to relearn how to think. You just need to map the English language onto thinking you can already do.
So, discouraging students from using their native language in class.
Can actually slow them down according to Cummins. The native language is a scaffold, a bridge, especially for complex concepts. You use it to build understanding, then you cross over into the second language.
Okay, but what does this mean practically for someone trying to improve their English?
A few things. First, be patient with yourself and recalibrate your timeline. If you've been learning for 1 or 2 years, you might have solid BICS, and you should feel good about that. CALP is the next mountain, and it takes time. Second, deliberately seek out academic and complex input. Don't just watch entertainment content forever. Read articles on topics you care about. Listen to podcasts that analyze and argue. Watch talks and lectures. You need exposure to the register of language where ideas live.
What's a register?
The style and level of language for a specific context. Casual conversation is one register. Academic writing is another. Legal language is another. And just like Krashen says about input, you acquire each register by being exposed to it. If you only ever consume casual English, you'll only ever be comfortable in casual English.
So I need to vary what I consume.
Yes, for BICS, conversations, social media, podcasts, shows. For CALP, essays, lectures, debates, documentaries, long-form journalism. Mix both, all the time.
Cummins' practical takeaways?
1. Know where you are on the BICS-CALP spectrum and set realistic expectations. 2. Add complex academic content to your input. 1 article, 1 lecture, 1 documentary per week minimum. 3. Don't feel guilty about using your native language as a thinking tool. Use it to understand difficult concepts, then practice expressing those concepts in English. 4. Give yourself a 5 to 7 year horizon for deep fluency. That's not failure. That's how brains work. Okay, last theory. And this one is going to shift your whole mindset about what it even means to know a language.
I feel like my whole understanding of language learning has been dismantled today and rebuilt piece by piece.
That's exactly how it should feel. Okay, Diane Larson Freeman. She's an American linguist and applied linguist, and her work is built on something called complexity theory, or dynamic systems theory applied to language.
That sounds very academic.
The idea is actually very intuitive once you hear it. Larson Freeman says, language is not a fixed set of rules. It's a living, dynamic, constantly evolving system. It changes based on who's speaking, who they're speaking to, the context, the relationship, the era, the culture.
I mean, yeah, that seems obvious.
You'd think so. But the way most people learn language, especially in school, completely ignores this. They learn rules as if they're absolute. This is correct, this is wrong, full stop. And then they go into the real world and people are breaking those rules constantly, and it sounds completely natural.
The amount of times I've heard native speakers say things that my teacher would have marked wrong.
Right. Between you and I is technically wrong. It should be between you and me. But educated native speakers say it all the time. Language doesn't care about being right. It cares about being understood, being appropriate for the context, building connection.
So what's the practical lesson from this?
A few big ones. First, stop being obsessed with correctness. The goal of language is communication. If you're understood, you're succeeding. Now, accuracy matters more in some contexts than others, a job interview, a formal essay. But in most of life, clear communication beats perfect grammar every time.
That's genuinely liberating.
Second, and this is huge, Larson Freeman says every language learner goes through what she and other linguists call interlanguage. That's the stage where your English is neither your native language nor full English. It's this messy, creative, evolving in-between system that's unique to you.
And that's normal?
Not just normal, necessary. It's the path. There's no shortcut around it. You have to go through the messy middle. And here's the thing. Your inner language has its own logic. When you say something wrong, you're not being stupid. You're making a reasonable hypothesis based on patterns you've noticed. I go to the store. Wrong, but logical. You're applying a rule you learned and testing it. That's your brain doing exactly what it should do.
I feel so seen right now.
Third takeaway from Larson Freeman. Expose yourself to many varieties of English. Not just American English from movies. British English, Australian English, Indian English, Nigerian English. These are all legitimate, fully developed varieties of the language. The more varieties you hear, the more flexible and robust your language system becomes.
Because language is a system that adapts.
Exactly. And the more inputs to that system, the richer it gets. Fourth, and this connects back to Krashen and Swain, embrace experimentation. Try saying things in new ways, make mistakes, get feedback, adjust. That's not failure. That's literally how the system develops.
Okay, so Larson Freeman is basically saying, chill out. It's messier than you think, and that's fine.
Pretty much. And also, the messiness is proof that you're actually in the process. If everything feels neat and rule-based, you're probably just doing grammar exercises. If things feel uncertain and you're making weird mistakes and sometimes surprising yourself with what you can say, you're actually learning.
Okay, Larson Freeman's takeaways?
1. Shift your goal from speaking correctly to communicating effectively. 2. Don't be ashamed of your interlanguage. It's the path, not a detour. 3. Deliberately expose yourself to different varieties and styles of English, accents, registers, cultures. 4. Treat every mistake as data, not failure. It tells you something about how your system is currently working.
Okay, we've covered 5 theories. My brain is full in the best way. Can you do a fast recap of who said what?
Let's do it. Krashen said, your brain acquires language through comprehensible input, content you mostly understand, and your emotional state determines how much gets in. So consume content you love, at the right level, in low-stress environments.
Nation said,
Focus on the most common words first. Use spaced repetition to lock them in, and balance 4 types of learning: consuming for meaning, producing for meaning, deliberate study, and fluency practice with easy material.
Swain said,
Input isn't enough. You need to produce language too. Speaking and writing force you to notice your gaps, and that noticing is one of the most powerful learning events that can happen. So talk to yourself, write, record yourself, seek conversations.
Cummins said,
There are 2 different levels of language ability: social fluency, which you can reach in 2 years, and academic, cognitive fluency, which takes 5 to 7 years. Don't confuse them. Don't compare yourself to that timeline. And use your native language as a thinking scaffold, not as a crutch to avoid.
and Larson Freeman said,
Language is alive. It's messy. Rules are guidelines, not laws. You will go through a weird in-between stage, and that's the process working correctly. Expose yourself to many varieties of English. Embrace your errors as data, and measure success by communication, not correctness.
Okay, if someone is listening to this on their commute right now and they're thinking, I want to actually change how I learn, what are the top 5 concrete actions, like things they can literally do this week?
Great question. Okay, action 1. Find one piece of English content you actually enjoy. A podcast, a show, a YouTube channel, and commit to consuming it regularly. Not because it's educational, because you like it. That's Krashen.
Action 2.
Download Anki. Go to Google and search New General Service List. It's a free list of the 2,800 most common English words. Add 10 cards a day. Put each word in a sentence you've heard or read. That's Nation.
Action 3.
Every morning, before you check your phone, spend 2 minutes narrating your day in English out loud. What you're going to do, what you're thinking about, what you're planning. Talk to yourself. That's Swain.
Action 4.
Once a week, read one article or watch one video that's genuinely challenging. A documentary, a TED Talk, an op-ed on a topic you care about. Something that stretches your CALP, not just your BICS. That's Cummins.
And action 5.
Every time you make a mistake, catch yourself before you feel embarrassed. And instead, get curious. Ask, what was my brain trying to do there? What pattern was I testing? Treat your errors like a scientist, not a student being graded. That's Larson Freeman.
That's a genuinely good list.
And none of those things require a class. None of them require expensive materials. and all of them can fit into a normal day.
You know what I realize? Every single one of these theories is basically saying, make it real, make it human, make it about actual meaning and actual communication. Stop treating it like a code to memorize.
That's the most elegant summary I've heard.
I have my moments.
You really do.
All right, everyone, that was a big one. 5 theories, 5 linguists, 1 very humbled Jay.
Links to everything we mentioned, Paul Nation's word lists, Anki, some good starter podcasts for different levels. We'll put all of that in the show notes.
And if this episode helped you, share it with one person who's been studying English, or any language, and feeling stuck. Because I promise you, they need to hear this.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
We'll see you next time. And if you're learning a language right now, keep going. You're further along than you think.